Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and today is, well, for me, it is now Thursday, March the 12th. However, for BZ, it is still March the 11th, 2020. And I'd rather call it March the 11th, honestly, because there's a whole lot that we've we've been going over this for the last little bit here, and there's so much here in President Trump's address that you and I watched together, and then we've gone over. We actually printed out his speech in its entirety. We got it straight from the White House, so we know that
Yeah,
this is the
you can
speech.
find it. You can get a download PDF on the IUB and everything. And just we did the setup piece, rushed to do the setup piece before his address, and it's so not surprising to me, but very interesting how that dovetails perfectly into what he was saying, and then having this conversation.
And actually, this conversation is so huge, BZ. There's so many puzzle pieces.
Yeah, and my thought was that we do we play with it a little bit and let that sit, let people digest those things. I suggest everybody watch. It's a 9 minutes and 34 seconds, I think, is the running time on the thing. You can invest 9 minutes 34 seconds, invest a few more minutes to read this. Play with this conversation, and then I'd love to have three of us, Sheila and Lisa and me, come back and dive in more, because I mean, a lot of these things that we've written, made notes on, they're just one section of a sentence,
Yeah.
right? Has very clear meaning. One of the
Well, I
things,
want to be very clear too here that personally, because this just came in for me. Um, Lisa wasn't able to join us because I think she's been getting huge downloads
right?
last night and tonight in particular, right before we got ready to meet here this evening. She couldn't even really stay awake. She was late for a meeting. Yeah, I'm really excited to have her join in on this.
And
Uh,
you saw the effervescent downloads coming as I was trying to do this in between.
I have to say this is actually huge, and I'm actually very dizzy right now. Even um, the first thing that I want to point out that I noticed when we got this particular one is, of course, the date being, the 11th. But then also that the speech actually started at 9:02 p.m., which numerologically is an 11, and ended at 9:12, and numerologically is a 3. And for
For the
me,
Trinity,
those numbers are very important.
yeah, master number
Um,
11 twice, and the Trinity number.
yeah. So you take it over, BZ, if you want to start it, because
Well, one of the things,
so much.
again, kind of tying into how the setup piece for this is a hypothesis. So you could do, maybe you've already listened to the speech or not, or read this or not, but kind of make a little notation, print it out and make a little notation, like a grade of percentage wise, or however you want to reflect that, of how you think does this, because by now everybody knows it's about the beer virus, right? That's the cover story. That's the marketing, the language, the marketing language. I'll say this: the marketing. That's the way the marketing language is couched to talk to the different audiences that are the end users of this. That would be a linear way to describe it. So
Before you move on with something else, BZ, before we move off of the name of it, because this just came in right at the same time as my phone went off. Okay, and it hasn't gone away. Corona is actually crown. And this is a multi-dimensional piece for me in the fact of how it was named, what the decisions were, whatever. I really feel like Source has had a huge hand in this
Yes.
because that in and of itself is very multidimensional. For a whole lot of different reasons, both light and dark, by the way.
Yes, yes. And as you were saying that with the videos coming in, so the light is being crowned, all of the Christ consciousness and crystallization of all the beings and the transformation going through. It's the crowning of, so crowning from birthing. So the crowning, this is a crowning moment for choice points, node points, decision, and actual emergence out of the swirling vestiges of the old false construct that has imploded and the new that is coming out of it.
Yes, and I have to say this too. The other thing that came in for me in regards to that, and the reason I said both light and dark, is that there's been a perceived sovereign of the world, and it weren't you and me. Okay, and that is changing. This is very clear to me that there is a crowning happening, yes, of all of humanity, the crowning of the Christ consciousness, as you say. There's also a decrowning,
yes,
taking place, and that's why I said light and dark.
right.
This is so multidimensional that it covers an awful lot for me anyway.
Right. So before we give you that hint, let me go back. You're spoiling the grade you're supposed to give it. So pretend you haven't heard that part and just give a little grade, and however you would do it for yourself, whatever, ratio, percentage, that you think this is addressing the measures and political whatever regarding the COVID-19. And you may say 100%, or is your, so you could do two scores, one where your head is writing the score and one where all of you is writing the score. I think you're going to find it very different. And then, or you could also flip it around and say, well, how much of this, before you've read it, if you haven't, or before you really actually read it with all of your seeing, sensing, knowing, and your sensory array, how much of it is addressing waking up, the hyper accelerated evolution? How much do you feel, do you think, do you posit, do you hypothesize that this is addressing? That would be part of the game to play, the playing with it. Because, I mean, some people are already gone where Sheila and I went, and maybe have had more time, more quiet time, so they've gone way further, because we're like, the video shooting through my head. I've got lines where I've got three words, not three sentences, not three paragraphs, 3 words, and it's all of these points and more. So anyways, that's just one thing I wanted to say at the beginning, because I think that would be helpful for people. This is not your presidential address, we're at war, we're at this, well, actually it is, but but it's not your average, this is not your father's presidential address.
Yeah, it's not linear. Let's just put it that way.
No.
It's certainly not at all linear.
Right. So what we did is we went through it individually and then jointly and marked up. And maybe what we could do, if you want, you can make yours digital and send it back. I'm happy to. I'll post both of these if people are interested in on the thing, and people can look at it and they can add their, hey, that jumps off of, because there's so much in here. I mean, it's huge. and what is being said. You know, you made a mention when we were talking about this off camera, but in between the lines, well, the brightness and the shining and the refracting of the neonness of the in between the lines ness is so huge that, you know, you got to put the shades down to be able to talk about dark to light, talk about the radiance of the actual multidimensional light frequencies, the seed points and the downloads. This is a huge multidimensional energetic download document.
I agree.
And what is coming out of it is huge. And there are calls, there are direct, explicit calls to action in here to every single one of you.
Yep.
And there are reminders in here of your oath, of your commitment, of your agreement, what you agreed to do for coming here, for being here right in this moment, for parts of your mission are, for every one of you, are right here in here. So the frequencies and the depth and breadth multidimensionally of this document is fantastically amazing. And it, to me, is, you know, Sheila got to see some glimpses of it, but it's so exciting. This is so I mean, rivetingly exciting, joyously, cosmically, deliciously exciting what this represents. The turn, this is, as I was jokingly said to Sheila, you know, this is the, you're on the Barca Lounger and you're waiting for someone to give you the memo that the new Earth has arrived and the shuttle is here to yes.
Well, and I want to say something here, BZ, because for those that might think, well, wait a minute, you know, I don't live in the US. I really do feel like that, because he mentions in here,
we're
all of us, global, many times.
Yes.
This is not just.
It is not, it has nothing to do with just the United States. No.
So I wanted to make that very clear from the outset, because
very important.
And I also wanted to say too that, because it kept coming up for me, you know, if you, because I just know, I could feel it, that there are some who might have heard this speech with their fear hat on.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I'm inviting you to put the fear hat down and open your heart and just hear it without, from an open perspective, without that fear hat on, because I have a feeling if you're able to do that, you will get more than you think.
Yeah. So should we read this and stop to go to some of the points, or how do you want to? Let's do a little bit of the, I know there's so much. Let's do a little bit of this of here tonight, so people, because we've already actually in just a few minutes covered a lot of the multidimensionality of it, and I think will be surprising to a lot of people, even if they have already heard it or read it. They go, huh? What? Wait a minute! I got to read that again. I didn't hear that. You know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So how do you want it? And then tomorrow we can do, well, today for you.
Yeah, it's up to you, BZ. I will say this: I would, for anyone that's interested in following along with us, to because when BZ puts this out, and I will put in my videos, I will be putting a link to the White House place where I got this from, so you can print it out for yourself if you would like to, so that you can go along with it. Because I will tell you that I listened to it live, and I got some. Then I got really excited because I got some of it then, but it was sitting here and reading it again with BZ, and there was just some of it that just, so and I have a feeling that as we do this again, there will be more.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to say that that would be my advice. Pause this video, print it out for yourself if you can, and if you're interested to. It's not a directive, but and just see, like BZ said, see what you get. I mean, because there's a lot. There's
Yeah,
even,
so we could get make sure that we got the actual text that the president read and put out. We took it from the White House. Theirs is not in a PDF version, so I put it on the IUB. So, because I know a lot of people like to take the PDF, put it on their phone, and then they can save the PDF separate from whatever and look through it. Or maybe there's a section that you're working or showing someone or whatever. Anyway, so
right.
those are all things. So I'm going to start reading a little bit, and then we'll go through some of them. Some of them may be very obvious. You can see it. It's very interesting. Everything is connected. We've been saying this for a long time. Absolutely everything. So Heather, Randy, the financial slavery, everything. It's all that, the pedophilia, it's all connected.
Yep.
And a lot of these things in here are tying directly to things that I posted recently on the IUV. And or tweets that I've made, that you can see how they happened first and this came, and they're all connected. One of those, which we'll get to later on in this, is an article I put up about the 425 million World Bank Pandemic Fund, and Heather's response to that. And you might look at the comments at the end of that post to give you a little bit more thing, and then you might be nudged to go do some research right in the RDB and answer those questions in there for your own edification and eye-opening. But anyways, all of those are in here. It's very interesting how all the pieces, no matter where you're looking, are all what do we say? There's a couple points here. We talk about how this is a reverse roadmap. This is a reverse mapping.
Flow chart. That's what you use.
Chart. Yeah.
Reverse flow chart
of things that have been laid into place and set into place and unfolding. And this is now showing you why all of those things were done and how this is unfolding. Even given that this may have been set about and set out by one camp with a certain specific intentions, and because everything is inverting now to the full consciousness and expansion of dark to light, that those are all being thwarted. And what happens is then every avenue, every pathway, as we talked about, in the little setup piece that we did about the map of the New York City train maps, how it opened all the doors for all of these things to seamlessly then flow through, of the dark to light, of the, a purpose, an intention, a directive of malicious, negative, dark intent was given, set out, and orchestrated, and it goes and it gets flipped, it gets inverted in the frequency, and can no longer hold and support that intention because they are no longer supported or held. Excuse me. And in the flipping, it opens up all the pathways, energetic pathways, communication pathways, flow pathways, materialization pathways, right?
Right.
And then all of those things can then flow seamlessly. So if you begin to play with this the way that Sheila and I have, and we've just barely scratched the surface, even with all the notes and buzzing that we're doing, you will see how beautifully orchestrated and how divinely inspired. If you ever heard the turn of phrase, trust the plan, it's the plan. and it isn't just a community of military intelligence and um,
Nope, not just, that's for
yeah.
sure.
So you can start to get to see that. Okay. So at 9:02 p.m. on March 11th, 2020, the president, my fellow Americans, tonight I want to speak with you about our nation's unprecedented response to the coronavirus outbreak that started in China and is now spreading throughout the world. Today, the World Health Organization officially announced that this is a global pandemic. And right on time, they announced it to meet their funding or breach of funding criteria. Go see an article on the IUB about that. It talks about all of that. It talks about what happens then. And if you read that and actually understand it from a derivative side and from a fiat system side and from a kind of a, although it's been legal, gaming of the system, how that would funnel serious money into the cabal's coffers, having this be declared. That's why you have to have such a push of hysteria and chaos and panic and all this kind of stuff when the figures are, Sheila, what you have was what in the US?
Oh yeah, according to Reuters, there have been 30 people killed with this and only 1,000 infected. Those are the numbers right now, according to Reuters, for the coronavirus. And all of what we've seen, this hysteria, this fear that's being pushed in the United States, those are the numbers according to Reuters. Now,
And
that's Reuters.
And a global, yes, but they're getting it from the different, leading
Right.
health, and so that's a world pandemic. Now they don't tell you that the deaths to date, I think it's from the end of December of 19 through this date in 2020, the deaths to date, and I think this may be a little low, but I remember it's about 22,000 people have died of the flu in that period.
Yeah.
So how come we don't have, right?
Right.
So
No,
anyways,
that's
that's one of those dots to point to. There's an article on the IV that tells you about that. And so he's leading right out with that. So that's right on schedule. But this is one of those sentences that's saying, we know, so there's multiple audiences, multiple ears, multiple target markets in this. Multiple, because it's multidimensional, there's multiple focuses, layers, levels, frequency neighborhoods, and outcomes. Okay, targets for artillery to be lobbed at, for defenses to be erected, or other defenses to be breached. So you can look at it. So look at this seriously, feel this, be with this, connect with this in a multidimensional way. So to the World Health Organization and the article that I'm talking about, which tells you about the fund, which tells you the whole gaming of the system legally behind it, we know what the plan was. We realize that you've reached that quota and that plan, and just hang on, because we're going to call you and raise you.
Yeah, if I want to say here really quick, BZ, that I'm really grateful that you explained it to me. And for those that, because the average Joe probably doesn't get it about that article in regards to the, what were they, catastrophe bonds, I think they were, that if this was officially claimed by the World Health Organization as a global pandemic before June of 2020, those bonds would then be, and I didn't quite understand it. And I'm glad that I told you that so that you could share it with me. And what that really basically means is anybody whose funds, pension fund, let's say, was invested with that particular thing, they just rated all of that. That went right straight to the cabal. All that money, because this was declared a global pandemic, they basically stole the funds.
And I would bet that there's an indemnity clause that they get more percentage basis for the amount prior to that deadline of the June.
Yeah, you're probably right. I wasn't, I knew it was a betting game because that's what the stock market is, period. Anyway, but I don't know why I was thinking it was the opposite, but apparently, that is something.
Right. And so based on that, go back and read the article, read Heather's comment on the article, read the comments to the whole article and Heather's comments, and then do a little research, and you'll see that everything is very seamlessly connected. And just on the one sentence, so ask yourself, and you may have been running into people who say, well, why is the media pushing this fear so much? Because we had to get to this. Yes. Money's running dry for them. Yep. Why? Because, hey, certain, people have this crazy idea and they've been cutting off the spigots back in 2012 and time's up. Right?
Yeah, so, no, I want to be VZ. I'm sorry. I know that we're trying to do this, but I want to be very, very clear about what you just said. Because there's a whole shit ton of people that still don't really get it. And I was one of them. So I want to be very clear what BZ is saying here. The access to the funds was taken away by Heather, to be very clear, when we, including me, accessed our accounts in July and August of 2017. What we actually did, because they couldn't access those funds anymore, the original depositors were the only ones that could. That's us. And because we did, we got the money out, and all they had to do then was lie and take it back. So they got access. So in effect, we were very complicit in keeping this going along for a little bit longer. I want to be very clear about that, because everybody who's like, when are they going to do something? Well, maybe it would have already happened if we hadn't done that. But, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I wanted to.
Yes. And let me just clear up. So the clock, the door locked, the big vaults shut, and all funds were taken out, stopped, and dried up, and returned to every being on the planet. Right. The way that the pipeline, because it's a fictitious pipeline, because it's a fiat created out of thin air, unless you're looking at a tangible, materialized good, right? Had a ways to could chug facetiously on that system for a while. Right. That was, if you read the Precipice, 98, I think, document 98.
I believe that's correct.
Where Heather gives you chapter and verse of, talks about the talks about the attempts of the life on the present, talks all these kinds of things. Again, all connected. And hey, you've seen, look at the Mueller report, look at the FISA court, it's all been proved out. And wait, because there's going to be more. So it's all connected. It's all dovetailed. It's all provable. Future proves past. All that, whatever metaphor and who's at camp you want to talk to, there you go. So that stopped the clock. That locked the doors. This was a great harebrained scheme to try to knock on the doors, get a little bit of stuff to have money loosened. You know, they're in. Harvey kind of harved it up a little bit there, and the white hats came in and en masse did it to prove, to show, to illustrate that.
Right.
Yes, some was lifted out so it can be pulled back, but it also shone such light on it that it had to be shut down. So it actually permanently shut that door for
Right.
them to be stealing, because as source does, recalibrates all the routing of that, not just the routing numbers, but the frequency vibrational routing, and it changed from within the system because it's an inside job. That's not just in a physical vessel, that's in everything. All of the terminology that you hear relates to everything. So whether it's a system, a structure, a coherent structure, in an embodiment, or in a physical structure, which is actually an embodiment.
Right.
It's just, anyways, so that's just that one line, all the wealth, and we haven't even touched much of that, but that's what that one line goes to. So there's research there, and you can see provable all of those lines that are coming back to that. We have been in frequent contact with our allies, and we are marshaling the full power of the federal government and the private sector to protect the American people. So as you read this and you play with this and you step into, I invite you to step into the multidimensionality of this document, of this moment in all of existence, because that's what you're doing. And that's what this is, a moment. This is a vortex of transformation. This is the big bang moment, and you're stepping into it. And it's not just the United States, it's not just this planet, but the way that the sequencing of the decoding and the revealing has been orchestrated, calibrated, and set up. It starts, the node point is the US, and it floods throughout this planet, and it then floods throughout all the multiverses, because that's the way that it was all set up. That's the way that we set it up. That's the way that Source set it up. And that's the way that it unbinds and unwinds and shoots this light, shoots this expansion throughout the whole energetic makeup.
Yep.
So again, this is just very cursory, and there we are marshaling. So that's telling you a number of things. Martial law, in the reason that it needs to be set up, and that all the constraints have been set up to do that, is now going to go into effect. Why do you think that there's certain countries that are already sequestered, that already have, you want to read your quote about the games that are going on?
Yeah. Let me just pull that up here real quick, because I did pull that up. This is apparently 30,000 US soldiers have been sent to Europe, in effect, for some war games. That's been the reasoning. And I actually, and they're stationing them throughout several different places. And according to this particular post, it's saying that, and this was from the one that I easily found here, was on something called Global Research. But and I know that there's more. That I did this very quickly. It was supposed to be the largest war games that have been played in 25 years. And it is all United States troops, with the exception of, which I found this very interesting, 7,000 troops from 17 NATO member partner countries, including Italy. So that's a very small number from other countries, as opposed to what's,
Yes, but look at the numbers. So
no, exactly.
7,000 troops as far as divine number, and 17 countries,
Right.
you've got the letter Q in
That's exactly correct. And
there.
there
And
have been,
wait, let me just say one other thing, because I've
okay.
always thought this is interesting. But 17 seconds, if you're in, you know, focused in creational force intention, and you can look back to the law of attraction and Abraham X, and 17 seconds is a way to hold the vibration. If you hold the vibrational frequency of 17 seconds, that's pure. And now, of course, anytime you can go 17 twice, that locks in that vibrational code and begins your amps up and begins your materialization power of your manifesting power to bring things, pop it from the field of all possibility into the manifested possibility.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about, well, I think I had heard that about 17 seconds, but not quite. For some reason, it didn't fully come into till just now when you said that. That's very interesting as well. Um, One of the things that I noticed earlier on today, and this is why I said this is a very puzzle piece collection intensive, and that is that, I belong to lots of different Facebook groups. I get put in a lot of different Facebook groups around, and I had seen the question being asked of those who reside in Italy if they would share with the group what they were seeing going on. And of course, a lot of it was being written in Italian, so you have to click this, see translation. But a lot of them were saying that yes, there were troops around, but they were confused because these troops weren't wearing masks. They weren't
You're not
wearing,
prepared.
they're not prepared. That's right. And so they were kind of confused as to what's going on. And the very first thing I thought of was, well, because that's not the reason they're there.
Well, they are prepared for the enemy and the virus, but it's not the virus that the Italians are thinking.
That's right. It's not what's being
It's not the cover story.
yeah, and it's not the fear porn that's being, perpetrated.
So I want to highlight one other thing in the beginning of this paragraph. We have been in frequent contact with our allies. So again, play with that, feel into that, connect with that. And if you go like this, when you read that word, allies, you'll start to really feel and connect with all of that.
Well, and too, for me, we have, like you said, we have a lot of different multidimensional allies, but he also is very clear to say, and the private sector. And so for me, that is one of those things where, like you were saying earlier, BZ, that is the very first tip off for me to know that all of us are included in this.
Yes.
That's not just, okay, I can hear the naysayers. Oh, sure. No, they're not talking about me. No, yeah, yes,
We are.
yes.
Yes, because private sector, he would have, he's very explicit, right? So private sector, if you're thinking not government, but businesses, well, then it would be businesses. Because in here, it talks about corporations, it talks about all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But the private sector is the private. So the non all caps fictitious.
That's right.
Corporation. So
yeah.
Again, this is the kind of thing, because it's a multidimensional document, because it is that decoder ring for all this, you're going to see that more and more of this will break down. That's why I would love it if other people would, because what will come to you is words and specific things will light up for you and will decode that. And so you can throw that in. The other thing I wanted to just say on that is, so twofold, just on this, the full power of the federal government. So if you remember, you can look on the IUV Again, it has the transcript of his inaugural address, and it has the video. But he made, and in the transcript, I highlighted and added my emphasis. I highlighted a couple sections in there. And he's very clearly delineating and defining that with the intention, and takes office and makes his oath to you, to each of us, that this is a transfer of power back to us, back to the private sector, back to we the people, back to each individual sovereign being. And so when then in this document, the full power of the federal government and the private sector, again, reiterating that pledge, that conveyance. So I've taken the mantle of this, the prostituted, the pilfered, the purloined, I don't know why I'm all on P's there, but of the government, of not we the people, for the people, by the people, of the people. It was something else and had been a ruse. I've taken that mantle back and I'm giving it to you. And again, this is speaking to your mission. So this is our time to come and stand for it, to stand for ourselves and stand for all.
Yeah, I want to be very clear about that too, BZ, because I'm glad you brought that up, that it's on the IUV for all to go and take a look at, because I I I didn't know any of that at the time. I watched the inauguration live and I saw what was taking place. And I have said before, I thought somebody gave the military guys the wrong cue. I was like, why did they come down and stand behind him right there for that and then go back? They didn't do anything. Did somebody tell them?
Yes, they did. They transferred the power.
Yeah, well, and I didn't get it at that time. But now, with everything that has transpired, going back and looking at that again and paying attention to what he is saying.
Yes, I think I
happened.
think I even put out the timestamp. So in the transcript, I highlighted that section. I may I may not have actually done it, but I thought about doing it if I didn't do it. Put the timestamp in the transcript, so then you can queue up the video to that part in the transcript. Watch the visual presentation, the changing of the guard, the securing all of the branches of the armed forces, which are now under his command and in true honest command of we the people, doing what their real oath was, not in the military industrial complex. So in that, but if you read the transcript of that moment and you watch the visual, you will see that's why they came down. That goes with his oath and setting the intention for that. So anyways, that's research for people to go, but you go watch it. That's why it's there and it's broken down the way it is, so because it's a moment.
Yes, it's a very important moment that, like I said, I didn't get at the time, but I now do. So I wanted to call
And
that
so at
out.
the beginning of this document, when he says this, that we are marshaling the full power of the federal government and the private sector. So he's not talking about the government and the rat badges. He's talking about the pure democratic republic. He's talking about the real of the people, by the people, for the people. He's talking about the real sovereign, powerful, because it's innate, source given power that comes through that. And that's what's setting the tone for this document. Not that it's the government of the United States, which is a corporation, and it's not that. It's been, all of that has been in steps and stages, all change, and that's what he's making reference to, in addition to the reference of our allies, which are not just on planet but non-locals as well, and the marshaling of, so marshaling all of those resources, marshaling all of those oaths, and the honor given to those oaths, and swearing allegiance to those oaths to do that, but also in marshaling, bringing forth martial law to pull all that in to be able to, under the color, right? I think that's the right term in the military, under the color of the banner of the staff that they hold and their allegiance to the people and not the military industrial complex.
Yeah, and I want to be very clear about something else too here now, because the minute you say martial law, folks get a little antsy. But there, I really see where that is coming very clearly. That is coming, and more than likely, I would say I've been feeling it maybe as early as the end of this week, but you know,
Go get some toilet paper.
let's don't go there. But I'm serious about this because I know that if one is looking at this through the perspective of the fear hat, then, again, my awakening took place with conspiracy theories and corruption. And so there was a lot made of, well, that's the game. They're going to put us all in FEMA camps. They're going to initiate martial law. They're going to do all this, that, and the other thing to us. And I'm saying that that's not the reason for this. And
no, and actually, I don't have access to it now, but a long time ago when I used to manage a blog on another site, it's well known, and some people who remember Brenner, they'll know what I'm talking about, and a trip to meet some of our friends. A gentleman wrote in at the time, and because it was in that other blogs, one of the accounts that I'd set up for them. I don't have access to it. I don't think. But anyways, and he was a high up lawyer in the JAG and a long time career military man. And he was just a personal note to me. He was writing this to explain from his experience and his reading of all the codes and all the references that related to the martial law, because when it I forgot the acronym for the act that involves that, but he said it opens the door in a legal framework to have the enemy combatants, such as all the people who are in the government, who are, so you can have, and people say, well, why do you need that? Well, you already have examples of if Schiff can get up there and make up this whole thing but not ever be prosecuted because he did it in the House of Congress, then he's not subject to all those other things because of where he did it. And President Trump has made many, many mentions about that. And that's amazing. How can he do? Because he knows that. He's just trying to let everybody else know that. So this gentleman who wrote me the email was letting me know that this was that as Sheila had just said, if you don't let the fear hat, I wasn't, but he was giving me that, come in, it's showing you that this can be used to extract, because you're going to find there's a lot of extraction going on, and you're corralling, extracting, you can use different words for it. But this was the reason for that, and that it was actually a very powerful, very affirmative step, because then there couldn't be ways to use the law to wiggle out of it.
right.
And yes, we all know, or many of us know, that the law is a joke. It was never right. But that is the prevailing perception, that it is something that it stands for. And part of unwinding and unbinding all of that is to work within that so that that flip can happen. And there can't be any wiggle room hiding under the pretext of the law.
Right.
And that justice, that actual, and what really has to happen is it's it's universal justice. It's not down here man-made stuff, where that
Right.
transparency and that full accountability can come through, and then that goes to each soul, and that's a whole much bigger conversation. But anyway, so that's part of what this is here, as relates to you pointing out about the martial law. So it
Right.
is more nuanced, and more far-reaching. And yeah, I mean, if you like the fear hat and you want to hang with the fear hat, then this conversation is a waste, because this is a conversation that comes from the love hat, from the most powerful force, weapon, entity, tool, structure in all of Source's multiverses.
Well, just like so much else that has been uh, ramped up and pumped up into the out into the field. This is another one of those things that I now see was pre-prep for this point in time. We gotta scare the crap out of everybody about FEMA camps and martial law, and they're listening to us all and all of that, so that everybody, because that way the ubiquitous they are way more powerful than they actually are, first of
Right.
all. And because there's a shit ton more of us than there are of them, and you got to control them somehow. So I see this as being necessary, and quite frankly, I'm excited about it, because that does signal quite a bit of movement, and everybody wants to know, when is this going to happen? Well, I think it's time now. And
Well, I actually know it's time. This is, I haven't been able to do what we've been doing great, all that well, because I've been, so excited. But anyways,
no, exactly.
so
So I
the
just wanted to point that out
yeah,
before we.
that's really important. And again, if everybody has the tools, everybody has the discernment meter, everybody has the answers right inside. You're the expert. You are absolutely the expert for you, and you have that tool right there. But you've got to shut this thing off and let it come back in service to you, to the center, to the core of you, to the powerful being that you are. So your whole being, not just you in the shirt. And then as you turn it back on and let it come into service, let it be the research hound. Let it be, as Sheila's talking, we'll put all of the links and stuff in. But, we found this piece to support this and this, and I've already mentioned several articles on that. They're all right there. So let the mind go and go, but okay, great, and find this to in theory to go off to disprove it, and then go, oh yeah, but I found this that proves that, and I found this to prove. I'm not doing so good on the disprove, but so, but that's where it's in service to the high heart that is actually your soul running the show.
Right.
So I think maybe do okay, let's do 2 more paragraphs, and I think that'll be a good place to
Okay.
end, and then we'll pick it up today for you and almost today for me.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is the most aggressive and comprehensive effort to confront a foreign virus in modern history. A foreign virus.
Yeah, I've done a lot of feeling into that one. And with the very first time that that doesn't even feel like, even in the linear speak, that 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 it's relating to an illness of some sort.
No,
For me, yeah.
it's also one of the first, there are many in here, but it's one of the first nods to Anu, the controllers of the planet, and all of that structure of the false construct So a
Yeah.
foreign virus. It's also referring to AI. So there's lots of levels in here that this. So this is a pretty amazing piece here, and your multidimensionality is showing all over the place. So let it for a moment, and just sit back in the chair and watch what it shows you, and you'll go, like the setup piece said, you'll notice, and you'll go, huh, wow.
Yes, and I don't know why, but I feel very compelled at this moment, even though it doesn't, to bring up what I noticed before we could even get this printed out and looked at it, before we could even find any place that had a transcript about this speech. What I did find, because I was looking for the transcript for this speech, what I
And
did find
it was
was
pre-prep.
this.
Wait a minute, before you say it, and it was pre-prep because the timestamp when it came out, it was less than 7 minutes after the speech had ended, right? And so it was already pre-written before the speech was given.
Yes, and I'm gonna, if it's all right with you, BZ, I'm gonna share my screen
Yep.
because I just saw the actual timestamp on this. So
Pay attention to timestamps, people.
yes, pay
Not
attention
just
to
cue
timestamps.
posts.
Pay attention to timestamps.
Notice and then go on.
So according to CBS, Trump's address is damage control, needs more than just words. And I will point out that this was put out at 8:35 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Wow.
So, like I said, it was.
He didn't even start this speech till 9:02. So you're going to tell me, I mean, yeah, no, of course, because, you know,
So here's another thing that just came in, and I'd be willing to bet, although I'm not sure how I would corroborate unless an insider from one of the networks could give it to us, that they fed the speech out. He gave the real speech, and we couldn't find it anywhere on the thing except for the C-SPAN teleprompter thing, which had a few mistakes because it's off the it's actually live in real time live coming up.
yeah,
Nobody else had it because the speech given, hey, you got big stuff to talk about, here's the speech, was not the big stuff he was talking about, so that people like that Politico and the other ones can write this, really helpful, informative article for all of the populace of the world to read, is not talking about the same thing.
no,
Then the
exactly.
speech
But
comes out, it's given, right? And still we're looking. Two of us are looking while I'm getting all the other things ready, right? Putting up the video, all that kind of stuff. We finally come out, and I actually had the thought I'd be curious to see what differences there are. Now, the teleprompter one we did get would be fairly close, except for some misconstruing of words or something, and that would be
yeah,
a translation type thing. But I bet if we could get a copy of the one that was given to the people who wrote that, they would be vastly different.
well, and the one from C-SPAN actually says, if you go to C-SPAN, you can find the one I looked at. And it says right in the bottom that the transcript is generated from the closed caption, which is all AI. So pretty much there was a few things in here that, could be because of, misunderstanding a word.
Yeah,
Like
or because AI is doing it and wants to misconstrue the word.
could be. But yeah, so I was amazed at, here I am searching all over the internet for a transcript of that speech, and they've already got this at 8:35 saying that it's damage control. Huh? Okay.
All right, so then it goes. So that's one of the things to pay attention to: a foreign virus. And if you feel that frequency of those three words, a foreign virus, it's very different than the beer virus thing.
No, yeah,
It's showing
exactly.
you a virus, a foreign entity virus, a foreign entity, absolutely, has infected humanity. And
Yep.
that is it's the body, instead of it's the body of humanity. It is the life force of positively polarized embodiments throughout sources multiverses that this is a foreign virus of. Anyways, feel into that. It goes on to say, he goes on to say, I am confident that by counting and continuing to take these tough measures. So again, we'll pick up playing with this one a little more in the next time we come back, because this is quite detailed. But just highlight that for yourself. By counting, what's the counting? What is
What
being
is
counted?
that? Yeah. What is he count?
So what different things can be, what can be counted? What is being counted? What are you counting on? What are you tallying up? What are you divvying up as you're counting? We got so many in this pile, and so many in this pile, and so many in this thing, and so many flips here, or resignations here, or right? So there's a lot here. Drop from here to here, and you'll start to see it.
Yep.
So that by counting and continuing to take these tough measures, he goes on to say, we will significantly reduce the threat to our citizens, and we will ultimately and expeditiously defeat this virus. So starting at we will ultimately and expeditiously defeat this virus. Not the virus, this virus. And again, what is the frequency of that phrase within the sentence there? They're
Well,
very distinct entities that are being referenced.
yes, and quite frankly, there's not. I'm sorry, but the word defeat in terms of a medical situation doesn't make any sense to me. Not in a 3D linear sense.
No.
Why use that word unless it is more than that?
Right.
That was very telling for me.
And again, you and I talked about this before. Make no mistake that every word, every comma, everything in this was vetted 6 ways to Sunny, up, down, sideways by scores and scores of people. And every thesaurus that there is, of just to pick just the right thing, was all employed. And I can guarantee you that it wasn't just the linear meaning, it wasn't just the English meaning, it wasn't just the political or the marketing or the we have a national emergency sort of stroke world pandemic stroke languaging. It was absolutely positively the frequency of each, and not only each thing, to bring each segment and sector focus, and I want to say no point that's being brought in, because everything that's being countered and created, dematerialized, and brought forth into materialization has to be put in there. And then they have to tie together, so the frequencies have to tie together. It's almost like the video that comes in is as you're playing, as the notes play, you're going up in the octaves, but the chords have to actually be able to blend, and that brings the amplification, that brings the expansive amplification of the frequencies up. And this is actually a tool right here in defeating the virus.
I would agree
Document
with
itself.
that. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. And again, part of the reason I feel like this entire thing is the event. This, for me, sealed that deal. Absolutely sealed that deal.
So we'll finish with this last paragraph that we're going to finish with, which is the 5th paragraph.
Yeah.
So, because it changes from here. So,
yeah.
He continues, from the beginning of time. Okay, there's another nod to many of things, Anu being one of them, and the controllers of the prison planet, soon to be former. From talking about, that's also referencing known history and the differential, the huge disparity and differential between the known history and the truth of that. From the beginning of time, nations and people have faced, and then this is the part that jumped out for us, unforeseen challenges, including large scale and very dangerous. And then it goes on to say health threats. So again, if you look at, well, Anu comes to mind, and the flood and Noah and all that kind of stuff too, because the beings that were created were waking up too much, and they had to be gotten rid of because they weren't making good slaves and all that kind of stuff. So do some research, but that's on many different levels there. This is the way that, you want to add something?
Well, I just wanted to point out from a purely 3D standpoint, if this were not a multidimensional thing here that we're looking at, from that one sentence right there, again, for me, points
Not
to the
even a sentence, it's just a phrase. It's got to come after it.
Oh yeah, no, well,
I mean, I don't know grammar well, but
no, but I mean the whole sentence, from the beginning of time, nations and people have faced unforeseen challenges, including large scale and very dangerous health threats. That is one whole sentence. But that sentence in and of itself is multidimensional.
Right.
For me, it just points very, very much to this being way so not just about what this is purporting to be about, is what I'm saying.
Well, and it also talks to me about the whole journey of source going forth to no source, and going through all the levels and layers of whether you're physical embodiment or not, and where your consciousness is in the aperture as you go forth and forget, as you go further out that connection and put your own veils down and all that kind of stuff. We talked about that a bit, and it's and those large scale and very dangerous perceived things that one goes through, the further and further and further you get away from that, and remembering, knowing, being in touch with, having a connection to the truth of who you are, existence is pretty dangerous, and there is much thwarting that seems to be going on, as we all can attest to just in this one particular go around. So right. Yeah, I mean, this is setting the stage for from your coming into a singularity, to the uniqueness that is you, as the one of you, out away from the one, the collective. And that whole journey, that whole infinite journey from the beginning of time.
Right.
He goes on to say, this is the way it always was and always will be. Again, referencing that traversing of consciousness, that moving through the layers of your own multidimensionality and your own awareness and your own coming into the full fruition of your singularity and your coherence with the oneness and one source.
This next sentence for me is quite telling.
Yes.
It only matters how you respond.
Mhm.
And we are responding with great speed and professionalism. That's
So
a message to every one of us.
it is. It is. It's the first of many where it's a call, and we
Right.
talked about in the beginning, it's a call to action to every single being, every one of us. You and you
Yep.
and you and you and you and you, all of us. That you are integral to the outcome of how this unfolds, how this plays out, how the road navigates, how the theater develops, how all of this, each part of it unfolds. We're responsible for that. We are a major player, an integral part, and unique and totally essential piece and component to that.
Yep.
This is the time for your mission to come through, one aspect of your mission to come through. This is the time of your contribution. You know, people have asked, well, the time is now.
Well, I also, when you and I went through this, for me, I also saw this in addition to what you just said. I also see this very much as you create your own reality nod as well.
Yes.
It only matters how each of us respond to this. If you're going to respond in fear and you're going to think that it's going to kill you, well, there you go. That's exactly what's going to happen because you create your own reality. It only matters how you respond.
So
for me, that's very clear.
And go back to what we just talked about at the beginning of this paragraph, from the beginning of time. And so we talked about going forth to know source and your whole trajectory through that. And as you come through those ordeals, through those transformations, transfigurations, transmutations of that, you realize, again, you come back into the realization of all the truth of who you are. And in this whole hyper accelerated evolutionary ascension process, you actually are changing the whole stuff that of which you're made of. So you are far more percentage wise right at this moment, wherever you are on your journey in through this hyper accelerated period, you are far more percentage based of crystalline structure than you are to carbon. The crystalline structure that is you cannot be affected by the virus or any virus. It cannot be. It is only the carbon based. And the you, how you respond, is the you in the shirt, which is you that's the carbon base, which is more the I'm small, right, save your meme sort of a thing. That needs to respond because the you, which is not affected by that, has already responded and knows the truth and lovingly is waiting and supporting you to make that response. That's where the 100% accountable, responsible, and liable comes in, because that's why you came here. This is what you came to do, what we all came to do. So this is beyond, Orange Man bad, talking about, some bad bugs that we gotta fix and throw a lot of money at, and it's a political thing. No. Everyone's multidimensionality is showing, and this is it. This is, I'll end this, for me, I'll end this segment. This is so amazingly exciting. I mean, it's so beautiful and so delicious. And the glory and the love and the radiance that is shining from this document, from the frequency of this. And this is not just Donald J. Trump. This is all of us. This is all of creation. This is all of Source's beings. This is how this is shining forth. And this is how we change and finish unwinding and unbinding everything. It's up to each one of us.
Yeah, I'm feeling very similar in this moment of now, since you and I started doing this with his speech this evening. I'm finding myself in a very similar position that I found myself in Knoxville, standing on the edge of forever.
Yes.
I can feel it, and I'm so excited about it. And I'm so grateful to be here and even just speaking on it. And I really am excited to to get back here again and do this again.
And look who's here. She doesn't come
I
to play with us all
I,
that often. She only
I know
comes
I
to
saw
very
that.
certain. Yes.
I love me some Rosie.
So yeah, so we've only gotten a little bit, but I think it's I believe it's an eye opener and a heart opener for many who can set their, if they have a fear hat, attached to their fear hat down. You can always pick it up again later.
Yeah, that's true. I just would encourage those that are wearing that to just set it aside. Like you said, you can pick it up later if you really feel the need to, but kind of set it aside and look at it from a different uh, perspective, because
we haven't even gotten to the good stuff in here yet.
no, we haven't.
There's only a little mark
we
up on this first 5 paragraphs. Wait till we get to the other one.
No, that's right. And there's lots more puzzle pieces that I collected that are to come. And I'm going to give one more teaser about that to have everyone just to know that for me, this is very, very specifically a multidimensional piece. This entire thing, part of the reason that I just had that nudge first of, last week to do that conversation with Lisa, I want to share that Reuters has published, it says exclusive, White House told federal health agency to classify corona deliberations, sources say. Now, if this truly were just about this pandemic, why would there need to be classifications? That's a question that one might ask. And I'm going to put a link.
I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute. So someone might say, well, it's far worse than you think, and they're going to kill us all, and no, we don't want to get it out. Yeah, maybe. More to the point, think of the Vindmans and the others around the world that are embedded into the thing that can position themselves in such a way to say that I need to know, or let me hear what's going on, or whatever it is. And this was also that Reuters was pulling it from DNI. So who just got into the temporary position of DNI to clean house before the appointed, and it has to go through confirmation, and that's John Radcliffe, right? So again, too, where there's mass panic and all sorts of scrapping and people shouting the loudest and all that kind of stuff. So again, look at that, and it then follows through. All those dots follow seamlessly through, because if you're actually now taking something that was had a focus and an intention and was set upon certain areas, certain factions for certain things. Remember, this virus is got patents and it has certain triggers and targets, and it's a targeted focus within it. And a lot of that, it's a special, there's lots of articles you can find on this, even in some MSM type venues, where it's targeted for Asian. So, again, look at all of those puzzle pieces. So somebody pissed somebody off because they weren't playing right with the company line, and we gotta fix that. But because this is bringing down, and source is then inverting all of this on its head, when we talked about it, and it's opening that door, it's now provided terrific cover for the final fast, sharp strike, killing blow, as it were, for this silent war to end all this, to use those, euphemisms. This is all now positioned, all the assets can be beautifully positioned to bring all this down, to bring under a guise and to discover. And yes, there are some people are dying of this, but there are lots of people dying from lots of things. It's not to minimize or begrudge any of that in any way, shape, or form. There's no such thing as dying. You transform to a different thing. So you can look at that again. It's either an intellectual exercise or it's not. It's either a heart knowing or it's not. But look how seamlessly and beautifully this is unfolding. So that would be an absolute reason why you would want that classified, because if you're using the cover in Italy, where the Pope just happens to have the coronavirus, right? And the Vatican and all the visits to all that area just happened to be closed until April 3rd. So, hey, watch for April 3rd, because something interesting is going to be happening then. All those kinds of, these are some tiny, minuscule, incy fraction of the dots that have just kind of popped into our head as we've been having this conversation before we got on camera. And there's thousands, if not millions of them, that are showing you, just like the image on the setup piece with the subway map, how they all beautifully go together.
Well, like I said, for me, and I get it, I guess if one is predisposed to fear, for me, there's been so little, like I said, there's only been 30 reported deaths in the United States and only a total of 1,000 cases. And I know there's a lot of fear that's been being pumped out there.
And the majority, the ground zero of those, of a large percentage of those 30, if we're doing percentage wise, were 17, 20 miles from me.
From you, which I found very interesting that you shared with me that Washington State hasn't even declared a state of emergency, to your knowledge, correct?
Nope. They have just instantly today just issued a special ruling that they're not allowing, they're banning any convergence of 250 people or more. So any events of that size over 250 or more have to be canceled.
I just find that very interesting where that's happening there. Here, North Carolina has 1 supposedly confirmed case and 7 presumptive. And yet all the colleges have already, and the state has declared a state of emergency. So there's just so much more.
It's covered.
And yeah, it is covered. It has to be, and that's why I pointed out the thing for me in regards to classification. Because what the article said specifically, I mean, for me, the article said specifically
You'll send me the link and
staffers,
I'll publish it too. So
yeah, staffers without security clearances, including government experts, were excluded from the interagency meetings, which included video conference calls. So, like I said, there's just there's a whole,
interagency meeting. So remember now we have one of the official government agencies which can share information because it's now, well, it's been there for a long time, but now it's public, is the Space Force.
yes, that's right.
And you know, there are various telecommunication bandwidths for conference calls and all different
And I
dimensional
would say that we
frequencies.
count as allies, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, so we are going to be picking this back up again.
Today.
Yes. Later on today for me.
Now it's officially today for me too.
And but now and BZ, you're going to probably go ahead and put this out on your site, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it won't be up on my channel until after I get some sleep. But so I want to say to everyone, if you're subscribed to Conscious Conversation Central and you have not subscribed to BZ's channel, there will be a link in the Show More section here, and you can go over there and subscribe to her, and vice versa. If you're subscribed to BZ and not to Conscious Conversation Central, come over and subscribe to me. Make sure to hit those notification bells so that you are notified when we go live and or upload videos. I would look for us to go live more often, coming very, very, very soon. And I'm saying us for a very specific reason. And let's see, what else did I want to say? There, of course, will be links to the IUV also in the Show More section. And BZ is going to have all the links of some of the puzzle pieces that, because I gave you all the puzzle pieces that I shared with you today. We didn't talk about them all, but you'll have them in
Yeah,
the
I'll put
Show
them
More
up.
section.
And then some things, the articles, I'll put up the articles on a separate post as well.
Okay, awesome. All right, so till next time, till tomorrow, well, till later on today for me. Bye, everyone.